This whole debacle with Stephanie White crashing out on her and benching her. Take a look at this interaction between Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston. They're whispering things to each other. This is after the crash out. This is after all of that. You see it. Caitlin Clark's like, yo, we gotta get this idiot the hell out of here. We gotta get this idiot out of here. Aliyah, I will not be signing my epic deal.
The assistant coaching situation deserves specific mention because it has been insufficiently examined in the broader accountability conversation. When a head coach's sideline conduct toward the franchise player has been visually documented on multiple occasions, the assistant coaches in that environment have their own institutional position. January's documented interactions with Clark, the physical grab captured in earlier footage, the sideline confrontations are not the head coach's conduct alone. They represent a coaching staff culture that has been permitted to develop and has not been publicly corrected by the organizational leadership above it. That culture is a front office accountability question, not only a head coaching one. The front office accountability question Cox cross off and the ownership level above them is the one that the season's documented record makes most urgent because the head coaching decision and the assistant coaching environment around it and the reporting violations and the rotation philosophy and the player development approach, all of these flow from hiring decisions and organizational oversight decisions made at the front office and ownership level. The coaching staff is the expression of an organizational philosophy. The organizational philosophy is the responsibility of the people who hired the coaching staff and have continued to retain it through the accumulation of this season's documented record. She's done with Stephanie White. Look at this here. This is a player that is mentally done. Stephanie White, congratulations. You have mentally defeated Caitlin Clark. She's done. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification and hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated. As always, this thing is over. I'm letting it be known once again. I'm rooting for Caitlin Clark 100%. The bench footage of Clark with her head down is not being analyzed here as a psychological diagnosis. Body language is not a precise instrument, and responsible analysis does not treat a single visual moment as definitive evidence of an athlete's internal state. What the footage does document legitimately and without overreach is a visible departure from the competitive engagement posture that Clark has displayed throughout the season's earlier games. The contrast between her bench demeanor in games where the organizational environment was generating momentum and her demeanor in this footage is documentable and directional. It reflects something. The specific content of that something is for Clark to characterize if she chooses to. The existence of the contrast is visible in the record. This whole debacle with Stephanie White crashing out on her and benching her. Take a look at this interaction between Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston. And they're whispering things to each other. This is after the crash out. This is after all of that. You see it? Caitlin Clark's like, yo, we got to get this idiot the hell out of here. We got to get this idiot out of here. Aliyah, I will not be signing my epic deal. The bench conversation between Clark and Boston, private, physically shielded from cameras, occurring in the immediate aftermath of the sideline incident, is documented, but not interpretable at the content level. Responsible analysis does not reconstruct private conversations between athletes. What the footage does document is that two of the franchise's most important players sought a private communication channel in a visible moment of competitive and interpersonal stress. The existence of that exchange in that moment is itself analytically significant as a behavioral signal. Its content belongs to the players who had it. What is not private and what is fully available for analytical examination is the tactical data surrounding the game's outcome. And this is where a specific piece of reporting from Jason Whitlock reframes the rotation management conversation in a way that deserves direct examination. Stephanie White rotated her players like they were playing 3 games in 4 nights. It was actually Portland playing its 3rd game in 4 nights. Stephanie White played 11 players in the first quarter. Wrong coach. Fire that bozo. Fire that bozo. There is no reason to play 11 different players in 1 quarter. This lady wants to be the smartest person in the room. That's the dangerous person to me. I don't feel like I'm the smartest person in the room. I damn sure am. Whitlock documented a fact that the standard box score analysis of this game had not surfaced prominently. The Portland Fire were playing their 3rd game in 4 nights. Indiana was not. The fatigue differential between the two rosters entering Saturday's game was measurable and meaningful. Portland's players were carrying a cumulative physical load that professional sports medicine consistently identifies as a performance-affecting variable, particularly in the second half of games when energy reserves are depleted. In that specific context, Stephanie White's rotation decision playing 11 different players in the first quarter of the game requires a different analytical frame than it would in a neutral fatigue environment. When your opponent is on the second half of a back-to-back and you are fresh, the correct tactical approach is to exploit the fatigue differential by sustaining your most effective lineup combinations for extended stretches, forcing tired legs to defend against a consistent offensive system and wearing down the opponent's energy reserves through continuity rather than constant rotation. Deploying 11 players in a single quarter does the opposite. It gives a fatigued opponent a rotating series of different looks, personnel combinations, and defensive alignments to process, effectively reducing the cognitive and physical burden on tired players by never allowing your own offensive system to establish the continuity that exploitation of fatigue requires. That tactical inversion, applying a high-rotation multiple-look approach against a team that should have been targeted with sustained pressure from your best lineup, is the analytical layer beneath the substitution timing failure that the Whitlock reporting surfaces. The 6:30 Clark and Boston simultaneous removal is not just a momentum disruption. It is one expression of a broader rotation philosophy that in Saturday's specific game context was tactically backwards relative to the opponent's physical state. The data Chloe Peterson compiled makes the consequence of that philosophy concrete and specific, on why Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark subbed at 6:30 mark of the first, after which Portland went on a 13-2 run. Caitlin Clark had 2 points, 3 assists and a rebound in the first 2.5 minutes of this game and then was subbed out. They were up 8-4. The Portland Fire then went on a 13-2 run. Caitlin Clark got back in the game, it was 17-10. And the game turned into an absolute free fall from there. From the second Caitlin Clark got subbed out, this game turned, the sequence is documented. 8-2 Fever lead. Clark producing 2 points, 3 assists and a rebound in the first 2.5 minutes. Portland on their heels, calling timeout. Then the simultaneous Clark-Boston removal at 6:30. Then the 13-2 Portland run. Then a 17-10 deficit when Clark returned to the floor. An 11-point negative swing manufactured entirely within the coaching staff's rotation decisions against a team that was playing its third game in 4 nights and should have been the less energetic team on the floor at that moment. White's press conference characterization of the substitution as a typical substitution pattern, already analytically indefensible in isolation, becomes more so in the fatigue context Whitlock identified. The argument for aggressive rotation management sometimes rests on a load management rationale. Protecting your players' energy across a long season, but load management logic applied to your own roster in a game where the opponent's roster is more fatigued than yours inverts the competitive advantage that should be exploited. You do not manage your own players' loads when the opponent's loads are already managed against you by the schedule. You apply pressure in sports, which was the Caitlin Clark show. Clark show, baby. They ruined it. Indiana Fever were becoming America's team. Must-see television. No question about it. They have ruined it. It's over, guys. Take a look at this. These 3 have completely destroyed the most exciting basketball team we've ever seen. That's Amber Cox, Kelly Krossoff, and Stephanie White. They have ruined this thing. It's over. It's over. The institutional pattern that this season has documented, the clipboard footage, the physical sideline interactions involving both White and Bond January, the reporting violations, the contradictory press conference statements, the rotation decisions that have been analytically contradicted by immediate game outcomes across multiple contests has now accumulated to a point where each new game adds to a record rather than creating a new one. The organizational trajectory is not ambiguous. It is documented, directional, and producing measurable competitive consequences. The assistant coaching situation deserves specific mention because it has been insufficiently examined in the broader accountability conversation. When a head coach's sideline conduct toward the franchise player has been visually documented on multiple occasions, the assistant coaches in that environment have their own institutional position. January's documented interactions with Clark, the physical grab captured in earlier footage, the sideline confrontations, are not the head coach's conduct alone. They represent a coaching staff culture that has been permitted to develop and has not been publicly corrected by the organizational leadership above it. That culture is a front office accountability question, not only a head coaching one. The front office accountability question, Cox, Cross F, and the ownership level above them, is the one that the season's documented record makes most urgent because the head coaching decision and the assistant coaching environment around it and the reporting violations and the rotation philosophy and the player development approach. All of these flow from hiring decisions and organizational oversight decisions made at the front office and ownership level. The coaching staff is the expression of an organizational philosophy. The organizational philosophy is the responsibility of the people who hired the coaching staff and have continued to retain it through the accumulation of this season's documented record. Caitlin Clark should be looking to move on. I think Caitlin Clark deserves better. Aaron Kane, do your damn job. Where are you at? Where are you? Where are you? Are you going to do something, or are you going to sit here and act like you don't see this crap that's going on? Do you not see what's going on right now? Look at what they have done to the biggest star in the sport. We watch every other team. We watch the Dallas Wings lean into Paige Beckers and prop her up. We watch all these other teams lean into their stars and prop Clark's representation. Her agent Aaron Kane now operates in the context of a fully documented institutional record. The leverage architecture of Clark's contract situation has been visible since her public posture on the extension became known. She has not committed. The organization has continued to produce the documented record this channel has been tracking. Those two facts exist in a relationship with each other that professional sports agents are specifically equipped to navigate. The comparison to how other franchises are managing their generational young talent. Dallas, with Paige Buick's being the most directly relevant current example, is analytically useful not as emotional contrast but as organizational benchmark. The franchises that are building sustainable competitive environments around young superstar players are making specific documentable organizational decisions. System design centered on the superstar's strengths. Coaching communication that builds trust rather than eroding it. Public acknowledgement that elevates the player rather than distributing her credit. Those decisions produce a specific kind of player-franchise relationship. The documented record of the Indiana Fever's 2026 season produces a different kind. The Atlanta Dream game on Thursday is the next data point. The organizational response to the accumulated documentation, whether it comes before Thursday, on Thursday, or after, will be the most significant data point of the season, regardless of the game's outcome. The record is complete enough to evaluate. The ownership group has what it needs. The question of whether they will act on it and when is the only remaining variable that the documented evidence cannot answer in advance. This is WNBA Pro. Subscribe now and activate notifications for the complete coverage of the organizational response and the Atlanta game as they develop. Leave your analytically grounded assessment in the comments. Does the Whitlock fatigue differential data, Portland playing their third game in 4 nights against a fresh Indiana roster, make White's 11-player first-quarter rotation and the 6:30 Clark Boston removal even less defensible than the substitution timing analysis alone establishes? And does the ownership group's continued retention of this coaching staff after Saturday's documented record constitute an organizational decision with direct implications for Clark's extension timeline? Every informed perspective in that comment section matters. We will see you when the response comes.